What's up guys, welcome to another video. This is a part 2 of my Q&A series. Let's get right into it. So this guy says, what rates do you fly? So in terms of rates, I'll put them on the screen here. This is the question I get asked all the time. What tune do you use? The Supafly one. So when it comes to PID tuning, I don't tune myself. I use a preset in Betaflight 4.4 I think I'm using, and it's the Supafly 5-inch preset. And for me, this just works like magic. I really love it. It's really great. This guy says, hello, I heard you have the Vanover Pilot's rate parameters, right? If you do, can you send them to me for reference? Thank you. So, that's a very strange question, sir, to ask me about somebody else's rates. Who told you that I would know Vanover's rates? I have no idea what Vanover's rates are, so I told him that. And he said to me, you don't know Vanover's rate? Like I'm an idiot? No, actually, I don't know Vanover's rate. And if I asked, he probably wouldn't get back to me anyway, because just like when he was supposed to judge the FPV Freestyle Kings competition, he didn't reply to my messages. So we'll probably never know. Mate, how the f you doing that, man? I reckon if I went on a coke bender, I would get closer to this. Now, I just had to include this one in there because it was just so ridiculously funny. No, I don't think going on a coke bender would make you any better at flying. Don't do drugs. What's the best way to learn the punchy stuff, mate? Sim or crash a bit? I would say definitely the best way to go about it would be to get a load of sim hours. Practicing the sim will definitely increase your confidence in real life, and it will give you muscle memory for doing all those snappy movements, especially because a lot of those snappy movements are quite technical, and learning technical things is really easy to do in the sim compared to real life, because if you crash in the sim, nothing happens, whereas if you crash in real life, maybe you're going home. Yeah, I'd say get in some sim hours and then combine that with real life, because your drone in real life doesn't feel exactly the same as the simulator, so you'll kind of want to get used to it in real life. But yeah, I'd say a bit of both, but definitely don't neglect the sim. So this was a conversation about carrying batteries on an airline, and this guy says, just concerned about batteries. How strict are they with it, the airlines and the airports? It's very vague here in Australia. I can only really speak about Southeast Asia and the countries that I've travelled to, and also the UK. But I've been on multiple flights and I've carried like 12 6S Lipos in a bag, been through customs and security with it a bunch of times, and I've been stopped a bunch of times. But once they find out that it's drone batteries, usually they're okay with it. You need to just check the laws in wherever you're going to. I think there are limits on how many you can carry, but I always put mine in a lipo-safe bag, and usually it's okay. Yeah, so just don't stress too much, especially if you're coming to Southeast Asia. This was a question about Bali. Yeah, just put them in a lipo-safe bag. Should be good. Can someone please tell me why I lose telemetry 150 meters away with ELRS? Can someone tell him that? Comment down below if you know the answer to that. Right, this next one is a question about the Barani trick, which is the power loop inverted yaw Matty flip. I'll show you here. And he says, I'm trying at the sim, but I don't seem to find the way to calculate how close to the floor the drone is to pass through. What's your camera angle? So my camera angle is 30 degrees. And what he's basically asking is, when you're doing your Barani and you're coming back for the Matty flip, is how do you judge your altitude? And I would say this is one that just kind of is very difficult to judge actually, but it just gets easier and easier with time, and it almost becomes a feeling. But there is a way that you can practice it so that it does feel easier and you can get that stick feeling. So I would say practice in an area with trees around you and do it in between two trees. So then when you go around, you do your inverted yaw spin and you're back for your Matty flip, you can see in your peripheral vision exactly how high up you are. So then you can judge just how low you're falling. You could even do it in between two buildings. That might be a good way to do it. And you can judge your altitude. And if you just keep practicing over and over again in a place where you can see how high you are, then you'll just get that stick feeling and it will start to become natural and easier. Hello brother, how did you got sponsors? Did you approach them yourself or did they contact you? Thank you very much. It's funny you asked this because I recently just made a video about this. and you can watch it by clicking either here or here. I'm not sure how YouTube works, but it will be on the screen somewhere, I guarantee. This guy says, how do you thumb so accurately? And this next guy says, so gnarly, how did you learn to thumb so well? So this is basically talking about when I'm using my control pad, I'm using thumbs, kind of like a traditional gaming pad, as opposed to pinching the sticks. And it's sort of like widely thought in FPV that pinching is a lot more accurate, and that if you're using thumbs, you can't get as accurate. And I would just say, I personally don't think this is true. I think if you put in the time and practice, that using thumbs is equally as accurate as pinching, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with me on this.
You are dead wrong.
For me, pinching feels way less natural, so I'm sure that if I did pinch, I'd be less accurate. He made another comment and he said, awesome, did you start pinching or thumbing? And I started just with thumbs. You know, start with what feels natural. Don't keep changing things around. It's like what I was talking about in another video. Don't keep changing your gear. If you keep changing things, you're not going to be consistent. So either pick pinching or pick thumbing, whichever one feels more natural, whichever one you think you're going to benefit from most, and then just stick with it over a long period of time. And yeah, you'll see progress. It doesn't really matter whether you're pinching or thumbing, just matters how hard you're practicing. Hey Patrick, I've got a question regarding your FPV setups. I'm struggling with weight in my drone currently, over 800 plus grams with a GoPro 10. Should I swap out to a DJI Action 2 or get a more lightweight frame and rebuild? This is kind of almost personal preference. If you want to use a heavier camera like a GoPro Hero 10, you are going to get less flight time and your quad is going to be heavier, but the fact that it's heavier will also give you more momentum when you're doing throttle punches and stuff like that. But if you do want a lightweight frame, you know, just consider what parts you're using. Is your frame heavy? Are you using a lot of TPU? There's a lot of things that you can remove probably that will get your weight down if you are looking for a lighter weighing quad. He then later says, so what props would you recommend? And I would say probably if you're flying a heavier quad, I would consider 800 grams and above to be pretty heavy. I would say use a lower pitch prop. And the reason for this is you're going to get more lift, especially at lower throttle with lower pitch props. So it's going to put less stress on your motors, and then you're less likely to burn a motor. And then he goes on to say, what weight are you flying at currently? I'm flying at 750 grams. That's my all-up weight. And I would say that's, for me, is kind of the perfect weight. It's heavy enough that you get the momentum so you can fling your quad around and it carries that weight through the moves, but it's not too heavy, like above 800 grams, and also, yeah, it's not too light, because I like it to be slightly heavier so you can get the momentum. Hey, in your opinion, is the Meteor 65 Pro is good to rip or freestyle? And then he later says, is it worth to buy the Meteor 65 Pro? So he's talking about this, the Beta FPV Meteor 65 Pro, and I did a review video on this exact drone here and my thoughts on it. So if you want to get into that, you can click somewhere on the screen to see the review and exactly what I thought of it and whether it was good for freestyle. I would say for me, it's slightly underpowered as it comes out the box, but if you're a newcomer to freestyle, it's probably good enough and you'll have a lot of fun with it, definitely. My favourite though is the Meteor 75 Pro, because this one's got plenty of power. You can power loop easily, power loop yourself, matty flip, do all the tricks, even inverted yaw spins and stuff like that. And yeah, I really love a slightly bigger tiny whoop. This one's just slightly too underpowered for me. Hope you don't mind me messaging again. Just wondering if you have any tips on trippy spins on lower obstacles, like normal height lampposts, very similar height to the white ones at your usual spot. My camera angle is in the realm of 28 to 30 degrees, and I can get the first section, but then seem to slam the floor after one rotation. So he's talking about this lamppost, which I'm going to put on screen right now in a video. If you're trying to get trippy spins, well, this is honestly one of the moves that I've struggled with most, I think, in freestyle, because for me, it doesn't translate exactly the same from sim to real life. I can do it really easily in the sim, but when I go out and do it in real life, it just doesn't feel the same. And I remember one of my first major problems with this was just maintaining altitude. And I would say if you are trying to trippy spin a lower object, then just be aware of your pitch and your throttle. If you keep losing too much altitude, then you either need to adjust your pitch so that it's slightly more forward so that you can see less of the object in your screen above, or just apply slightly more throttle to keep yourself up in the air. Quite often, all it takes is just a minor pitch adjustment and you don't even need to add throttle. And that should kind of keep you going. And also you've got to consider your entry, because sometimes the entry is one of the hardest things. I like to approach the object and kind of swerve behind it because that allows me to keep the momentum. But I know probably more popular entry is people go up to the front of an object, kind of stall and then start their trippy spin like that. At the end of the day, I would say for the entry at least, your biggest friend is the simulator. Practice as much as possible, and then yeah, just keep grinding it in real life as well, and eventually it will just become easier and easier. I feel like I'm slowly starting to kind of understand and get the hang of trippy spins a lot more now, but it's just practice, stick time. Stick time is always the answer. Can it be that when I film with the Action 4 with stabilization that the snappy moves are corrected because it never looks like in the sim? Yes, it can. And this is why I say no to stab. Totally. If you're going to use stabilization and you're trying to do all those snappy movements, fast movements, the stabilization would kind of dampen those moves and try and smooth them out, and it just won't look the same as in the simulator, and it just won't look as good in my opinion. And if you are going for that kind of snappy, juicy style, you got to turn stabilization off. Somebody says to me on my previous trick tutorial, nice video. Thank you very much, sir. Can you do a tutorial video on a trippy spin and a reverse wall ride if possible? Thank you. Now, I've kept this one in here because I want to ask your opinion on what trick you think I should focus on in my next trick tutorial. I'm not that keen on doing a trippy spin one because it's been done by a few other people, and like, for example, the dolphin dive one, I've never seen anyone do a dolphin dive tutorial. So I'd like to focus on tricks that there aren't tutorials out there for. But yeah, if you've got any ideas for tricks, let me know. Last but not least, bro. I see you always flying and pushing your skills even when you fly alone. How, TF, you stay so motivated? I would say it's just through the routine that I've kind of created for myself. That's one point I would say. It's good to get into a routine with a hobby. It's just like fitness, you know. If you get into a routine, it just kind of becomes natural. I go out and fly every single Sunday, even if I'm not really in the mood, although that's extremely rare, because when you get out and you're actually doing it, it makes you feel so much better. Another thing I would say is keep continuing to push yourself and set goals, because one of the reasons why a lot of people quit, I think, is because they're not seeing any progression and they get bored and then they just stop. So I would say, like for example, last year I set myself the goal of learning one new trick every single month. And I think just pushing myself every single month to learn that new trick really kept things fresh for me. It gave me something to work towards. And then as a result of that, I was then able to look back on my progress and see that I've been improving and learning new things every single month. And that gave me further motivation to then continue pushing because I saw an improvement in myself. So, you know, if you feel like you're stagnating, maybe set yourself some goals, set yourself some challenges, that helps. And yeah, the routine also helps, of course. But yeah, hopefully that helps a bit. And that's pretty much all of the questions that I've collected for today. If you like my t-shirts, Trippy Spin, you know where to get it, fpvfreestylekings.com. Plenty of FPV freestyle related merch there. Feel free to go and have a browse. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'd love to do more of these. Next time, maybe I'll put up a questionnaire on my Instagram asking if you have any questions. But yeah, you can also leave a comment below if you've got anything you want me to answer in future. But hopefully you learned something, or at least were entertained. And thanks for watching. See you in the next one.